Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Motherhood is both amazing and difficult at the same time. The Passport Mommy, Michelle Jerson, is here to share in your journey.
It's amazing. It really is, just watching them grow and see how much change and how much they learn just without the filters around them.
Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
Welcome to the show. I hope you're enjoying your day. So I don't know about you, but I can't believe that Thanksgiving is almost here, and I am craving a vacation more than ever. I had my son in May, and I'm already ready to get on that airplane and go somewhere. But, my husband started a new job recently, so we hadn't traveled much this year. So I am ready. And for that, I have with me today Gabe Saglie. He is the TRAVELZOO senior editor. TRAVELZOO is the destination to find exclusive offers from top travel and entertainment companies from across the world. You could sign up to be a free member at TRAVELZOO.com, which I highly suggest that you do, because you'll get these great deals to your inbox every week. Hi, Gabe. How are you?
Hey, Michelle and Mama, you're right. You're due now. You got to hit the road. Time to a little me time. I know what that's like.
Yes, whether it's me time, I'm not counting on me time as much as I would love it, but even just to get out of my realm right here, even if it is with the kids. And then if I could sign up for one spa treatment while I'm away, I'm fine. Or scuba diving, I'm good. That's it.
Yeah, everybody's happy. It's a win-win. Well, I've got 3 kids. I got them on airplanes early. My oldest son was 2 weeks old when we got him on an airplane.
Wow.
And the earlier you get your kids on airplanes, as you know, the earlier they learn that little space, that seat is their kingdom for the next 4 to 5 hours. You can do whatever you want in that space, as long as you're not kicking the seat in front of you or raising your voice too high. And the earlier they sort of come to terms with that, the easier it is over time to travel with them. They get the concept, and it just makes it a win-win for the whole family. So it's a good idea. We're already around the corner is going to be the busiest travel time of the year. I think proactively now we're seeing hotel bookings seeing a bit of an uptick from last year. So I think people are now, the word's getting out. You want to proactively start booking some of your vacation spots, especially if they're in that sort of, the last couple of weeks of the year, the first week or two of 2020. There'll be a busy time to travel for sure.
Right, exactly. And just to get back to flying with kids real quickly, for those that don't know, up until your kid is 2 years old, they fly for free. So I would take advantage of trying to go as many places as you can before then.
Yeah, easy. I mean, the fact is, when my kids were closer to 1.5, we were already looking at the fact that maybe buying them a seat, even though they could have flown for free on our laps.
Right.
It's just an investment in sanity overall. Sometimes that extra bit of space is just worth investing on. So if you find a great fare, sometimes even if your kid's under the age of 2, it may be worth securing that little bit of real estate there between the aisle and the window seat. But yeah, you're right. Up to age 2, your kids can go on your lap, and if they're if you're one of the lucky ones where they can withstand a flight for an hour, a couple of hours on your lap, and you can have them nap or keep them distracted, it can certainly save you some money along the way.
Right, exactly. But you did just bring back memories for the sanity part of it. So you do have to weigh the options and how long your flight is. So coming up is Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and now travel companies are hopping on board for this, which is great news for us.
It used to be all about bargain hunters seeking things like electronics, and some of the bigger ticket items that would become holiday gifts. This whole idea that you'd be hitting the stores. Now it's actually Thanksgiving evening. Some of these stores are opening up and drawing big crowds. But yeah, the travel industry's hopped on board now. So this whole Black Friday to sort of now we're calling it the Black Weekend, and then all the way to Cyber Monday, where you're seeing that Monday after Thanksgiving becoming a very popular day for sort of these flash sales online. The travel industry has year by year now really sort of embraced this concept. It's a captive audience, so the same individual who's going to be shopping for a brand new refrigerator or the latest fancy gadget, it was likely also ready to invest on a vacation or on a getaway, even if it's not immediately, even if you're looking at booking something that's going to be happening in the middle of 2020. The fact is you're going to see travel companies starting on that Black Friday into the weekend, into Cyber Monday, pumping out some pretty aggressive offers, some pretty creative packages. At TRAVELZOO, as you know, our flagship newsletter, the top 20 comes out every Wednesday morning to our 28+ million members worldwide. We've got a special Cyber Monday edition of the top 20 that particular week. So as sort of eye-popping as some of the offers are on our regular Wednesday top 20, that Cyber Monday promises to be a day where we're going to be putting out some sort of very specially negotiated and sort of very value-driven travel opportunities across the board, whether it's cruises, whether it's vacation packages to Europe, whether you're looking for a spa deal down the street. The idea is that we're going to be inspiring a bit of travel on that Cyber Monday.
I love that. And especially because you said it might not be for right away, but in 2020, because like I said, time just keeps slipping away. I said to my husband back at the beginning of this year, hey, I want to take at least one trip by the end of the year when our little guy is a few months old. And now it's November and we have nothing booked. So I feel like hopping on the bandwagon when you can, and this way you are committed and you know you have something in the books, is the way to go.
Well, and listen, you're not alone. I mean, the fact is that Americans leave millions of vacation days untapped at the end of every year. You'll start to notice in January there is every year it gets bigger and bigger, but this national push to get people to, before January's up, to lock in their, 10 days you're getting a vacation in 2020, and really sort of taking time before January's up to look at the calendar for the year and block off, a 3-night getaway here, a week-long vacation with the family there. And the idea is that, and you can change them as the year goes on, but if you can lock down your vacation days before that first month of the year is up, then you're better guaranteed that you're not ending the year without using your time off. And using time off is certainly about traveling and expanding your horizons and going somewhere new and tasting new foods and meeting new people. But it's also a bit of basically a sanity check. I mean, we're working 24/7. We are connected to our jobs and our professions more than ever before. Our family demands do not dwindle, and so this idea that you really are carving time to escape your daily routine, to go beyond your day-to-day rigmarole is just sort of a healthy thing to do. And then what you see and taste and people you meet along the way is just the added bonus.
Right, exactly. So do you have any hot plans coming up for the Thanksgiving time, or do you know of any deals?
Yeah, well, we've got, as a family, actually, we're actually hitting Hawaii for the first time over Thanksgiving. So we're doing a sort of a luau Thanksgiving meal with just sort of my immediate family of my wife and our 3 kids. Usually what I'm always suggesting is that people look at that beautiful little window between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which this year is shorter than it was last year by about 4, 5, 6 days. And that, Thanksgiving is now on it lands on the 28th. And so the window now between that Thanksgiving weekend and Christmas now just shrunk by almost a week compared to Thanksgiving 2018. But that window is, and then many avid travelers know, is a sort of a little sweet spot where travel slows way down. People either traveled over Thanksgiving week and are saving up their off time for that December 20th onward period. So those first 3 weeks of December end up being a bastion of great availability. Prices soften even in very popular destinations like Hawaii. If you've got the time to take before December 19th, 20th, and after Thanksgiving, that's a beautiful time to travel because it's easier, it's less expensive, and it's just sort of a little secret that a lot of avid travelers have already discovered.
Yeah. And that's great to know because especially I feel like in a lot of businesses, business slows down in December and not just right at the holidays. So that is a great time to travel. And if you're not locked into, say, a school calendar, why not take advantage?
Exactly right. When my kids were younger, it was easier to pull them out of school, for a little, Hawaiian jaunt in late November, early December. And now that my oldest is entering high school, that's frowned upon apparently by school officials. So we're going to stick to our week off in Thanksgiving, as so many of us are, in fact, pigeonholed to these very specific travel windows. But yeah, folks with a disposable time and income to travel, that is one of the great periods of the year, or even very popular destinations go on sale. It's sort of a soft secrets, sort of unspoken sale. But yeah, that's a great time to travel. The official holiday season, it begins right around December the 20th. It'll go all the way through January 6th of 2020. Those are just going to be very popular days, very busy airports. The odds of a middle seat being open, very slim.
Right.
So again, if you can come back from that holiday trip on, sort of that middle of that second week in January, you'll see almost day by day airfare drop pretty dramatically. And then it's just sort of an easier, you get just more elbow room when you're hitting airports and hitting the road.
For Thanksgiving, if people are still looking to go away at this point, are there any tips if people fly maybe on Thanksgiving or another day around Thanksgiving to still get a reasonable fare?
The busiest days, as per usual, is going to be that Wednesday before Thanksgiving and that Sunday after. If the weather's good and you can guarantee that you'll make that dinner by that evening, that Thursday morning, that Thanksgiving morning flight may be the way to go. If you're looking to come back from Thanksgiving, that Friday is actually really good, because Friday is when the Black Friday shoppers are in the stores. People who are traveling for Thanksgiving are not thinking about flying back home the morning or the afternoon after the big meal. They're thinking leftovers, and they're thinking about mapping out the weekend. So that Friday really becomes a day when you might find some great, even last-minute airfare sales, and it'll just be a lighter load in the skies and on the road.
Gabe Saglie, he is the senior TRAVELZOO editor. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few.
Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Gabe Saglie. He is the senior editor of TRAVELZOO. TRAVELZOO is the destination for the best travel deals around. And don't forget, you can go to their website and sign up for their travel deals that you can get right to your inbox every week. And I promise you are going to want to take advantage. I know whenever I would get those to my inbox, I say, I want to go here. I want to go here. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's this price and that price. So for that is Gabe Saglie is your man. And Gabe, you just got back from Ireland.
One of the great destinations, as you know, is Ireland. And, for the last, I'd say, close to a decade, we've been out there covering St. Patrick's Day. So every March we're out there. We do TV interviews with the stations back in the States, live from the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Dublin, which is the second largest St. Paddy's Day parade in the world after New York City. And then we do a Facebook Live event, and it's basically we're streaming this very spectacular sort of Mardi Gras style parade to folks around the world. 70 million people worldwide claim some degree of Irish heritage. Not bad for an island nation of only 6 million. And so there is this sort of this ongoing general fascination and interest in Ireland from people around the world. This particular trip was interesting because, just lately, I'd say that in the last year or two, word's starting to come out that, and Ireland is starting to lay claim to it being the birthplace of Halloween. And in fact, there is a particular hill, the Hill of Ward, which is just about an hour's drive outside of Dublin, where through archaeological digs, where through carbon dating of remains that have been found there, through legend and fable and storytelling, they've determined that this is the hill where the very first ceremony that would become Halloween took place about 3,000 years ago. So it started as a pagan ceremony at the end of what was then the calendar year. Summer and harvest was over. People were hunkering down for the upcoming winter months and the second half of the darker half of the year. And October 31st was that sort of the cleavage between those two sides of the year, and the day when the veil between this world and the next sort of just temporarily disappeared. And the idea that spirits and loved ones who have passed could perhaps venture back started to kind of take hold. And all of a sudden, 3,000 years later, we're celebrating Halloween. And a lot of the traditions, interestingly, for example, people back then would wear masks as a way to confuse or throw off, nefarious spirits maybe that crossed over, and therefore, that's this idea of wearing masks for Halloween came from. And because it was the end of harvest and everybody's pantries were stocked, with what they'd reaped from the land. Neighbors would go around and knock on friends' doors asking for a taste of that, whatever produce they harvested that day. And so this idea of trick-or-treating, or going from door to door asking for a taste of that year's bounty, gave birth to what is now our traditional Halloween trick-or-treating tradition. So very interesting, long-standing tradition there, and now Ireland is trying to put the word out there and they launched a brand new festival this year called the Puca Festival, P-U-C-A, which is a sort of a Celtic word for ghost, and is in fact a character in Celtic mythology. Puca is, but basically inspired a 3-day festival, and we were there on the ground to cover it in the town of Trim, just outside of Dublin. So fascinating story. People who love to Halloween and love to travel perhaps would consider Ireland as their Halloween destination of choice in 2020 and beyond. Great assignment, as always, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Ireland, and unfortunately, I've only been there once, but once was amazing. I know you get to frequent the country quite often, but there's so many different regions and so many great traditions. And to now hear this one, that's incredible. And I feel like there are so many people who just absolutely love Halloween. So what better place to spend it than there?
Yeah, and this was it's a festival that takes place in 3 different locations. This hill that I mentioned, Hill of Ward, there was this nighttime sort of fire torch procession that took place and led to the top of that hill. In the town of Trim, right next to Trim Castle, which if people saw the movie Braveheart, Trim Castle would be famous from the movie Braveheart, but a great castle dating back to 1174. And then Drogheda, which is another little town nearby. So great festival. Traveling to Ireland has appeal on multiple fronts. I think now with the Brexit situation looming on the horizon, they have seen a drop off in travel from the UK into Ireland because the sterling has gotten weaker. That opens opportunity for Americans in that they're pumping out now a greater number of creatively put together packages as a way to attract U.S. consumers, again, in a way to make up for some of that lost foot traffic out of the UK. And keep in mind that Ireland is the only country in Europe where you can do, before you head back home to the States, you can do what's called customs pre-clearance, which means that you're getting your passport stamped and your bags checked, and you do all that customs stuff there instead of when you land at Newark or Miami or Dallas or LAX, and you got to stand in that line, and got to deal with with the long faces. None of that, because you do it all in either Dublin or Shannon. You land in the States. You're basically, for all intents and purposes, a domestic passenger. You get off your plane. You go to, you leave the airport. You're done. Only European country who does that. So I even tell people who travel elsewhere in Europe, hey, tack on a night, even if it's your last night, in either Dublin or Shannon, just so you can get that pre-clearance done. You're saving yourself a lot of hours in some cases, and certainly headaches compared to having to do it back in the States.
Absolutely. That's great advice. So we're up against the clock with this segment, but I want to hear more. I want to hear more about Ireland. I want to hear about the new vegan menu with some of the Disney adventures. So we're speaking with Gabe. We're speaking with Gabe Saglie. He's the senior editor of TRAVELZOO. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
Passport Mommy with Michelle Jerson. Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
We're speaking with Gabe Saglie. He is the senior editor of TRAVELZOO. TRAVELZOO is the destination to find exclusive offers from top travel and entertainment companies from across the globe. And you can sign up for free at TRAVELZOO.com to get weekly deals right to your inbox. Gabe, thank you so much for joining me today. I always love talking with you because you are inspiring. You always come to the table with so many great deals and fun things that are going on in so many great destinations like Ireland. We were just talking about a new festival surrounding Halloween. And now there's another new one coming out, a tasting sort of festival. And who doesn't love a food tasting festival?
Yeah, and it's interesting, actually. Ireland is one of those countries that's sort of leading the way in this idea that festivals will draw travelers. In other words, I feel like there's they're at the point now, and they've got people whose full-time jobs on the ground there is to come up with and produce festivals. Because if your interest is music, or if it's literature, if it's food, if it's whiskey, if it's fish. There is a festival to pretty much target any interest that you might have. And this idea that you put on a great festival, it will draw travelers is something that Ireland is certainly putting to the test. They're one of their new festivals this year is called Taste the Island. It's a 3-month festival. It started in September. It goes on through the end of November, with the idea that it basically brings the culinary industry island-wide together. So there's at their website, Ireland.com, you'd have it basically one resource where you can access restaurants, festivals, tasting events, chef experiences, food tours, with the idea that food is really now something that is increasingly attracting people to destinations. And this was another, one of those great stories I got to cover when I was there last week, is how, the kinds of things that are being highlighted. So I visited a couple of what they call cooking schools to you and me, but they call them cookery schools out there. And what's interesting is that, Ireland is not necessarily the place that comes to mind when you think about Europe and food, but they're trying to change that by really shedding the spotlight on regional and super local types of food movements. So you'll have cooking schools where they will draw their ingredients and they'll focus on dishes that are sourced from within 10, 15, 20, 30 miles from that particular school. So you're tasting and you're using eggs and produce and fish and beef that were raised or harvested in that very specific region of Ireland. You throw in this new sort of generation of chefs who have perhaps traveled to the world and have come back to Ireland to take what is traditional recipes, traditional ingredients, give them a sort of a fresh new modern spin, and put them in front of an audience that is increasingly looking for culinary excuses to hit the road. So anyway, fantastic event, in Galway on the West Coast, great oysters and some plethora of fish. The butters and the cheeses there are starting to gain some prominence in Europe alongside some of the cheeses from places like France and Spain and Italy. The beef, this idea that you are raising grass-fed animals, that you're treating them humanely, that they're being processed within just a couple of miles from where you're consuming them. That is being promoted and pushed in a big way. So, yeah, I gained a couple of pounds, Michelle, but happy to do it for the sake of uncovering this new festival that again now will become a yearly phenomenon there, the Taste the Island event. And it wasn't just food; it's drink as well. And in fact, there are 24 now distilleries that operate in Ireland. Less than a decade ago, that number was in the single digits, but clearly there's been an investment. Global sales are up, and now you're getting these new whiskey distillery projects that are popping up, in some cases in these old historic castles, and they become these fantastic immersive visitor experiences where you're seeing the production facilities inside these repurposed old 17th century buildings, and then tasting fantastic world-class whiskey, learning the heritage that goes behind them, and sort of expanding your appreciation for what is obviously a landmark beverage there in Ireland.
Yeah, you have such a tough job, Gabe. You really do.
I know. Sometimes it's lonely out there, Michelle. So let's get the kids on the plane. Let's get them out there. Let's hit the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I know. I would sacrifice, people, actor and actresses, they put on weight gain for different roles. Well, you have to do the same when testing out all these different places. Yeah,
you're totally right. I have a story behind every pound.
Yeah, I love it. See, at least it's interesting. So tell me now, let's switch gears a little bit, because Disney is starting some vegan options. Is it on their cruise line?
So this is limited currently to their 2 U.S. parks, Disney World in Orlando, Disneyland, California Adventure in Anaheim in Southern California. What's interesting is that this is one of their most comprehensive sort of culinary overhauls, in that it really takes over pretty much every restaurant, including hotel restaurants. In Orlando, Disney operates about 24 plus different resort hotels. So restaurants in the hotels, along with restaurants in all 4 Disney World parks, and in Southern California at Disneyland Hotel and the Grand Californian and the Paradise Pier Hotel, as well as Disneyland California Adventure. So you're looking at every restaurant now will have this new infusion of vegan, meatless, plant-based menu items. So they're introducing 400 plus new menu items. They're introducing a new green leaf icon, which identifies these items on every menu. So it's a major overhaul. It's tapping into what is clearly a movement out there, and I think it's when you get a brand like Disney backing a movement like this, and showcasing food in what is for so many of us in a brand new way. I got to sit down with John State, who's the executive chef for Disney Resorts out here in Anaheim, and we tasted through several of these items, and the fact is that so they're foregoing meat. They're bringing in some sort of veggie-based products, grains, legumes, nuts, and using them so that you're not losing texture, you're not losing flavor, or even the color of food. Even more so, the storytelling aspects. So if you're eating at Docking Bay 7 there at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, there's sort of a story behind that dish because because of the location where you're eating it. That storytelling doesn't go away either. It's just bringing in this new set of ingredients that makes the vegan sort of culinary offerings just more mainstream, more available. I'm not I don't eat vegan on a regular basis, but I have to tell you, I was very impressed by just the fact the flavors are there, the textures are there. If you're eating a burger, if you're eating fajitas, you're not really sacrificing much because so much has gone into making sure that these aspects of our eating experience are maintained. So, 400 plus items. They're, I think, pretty much in effect at Walt Disney World in Orlando. By spring of next year, Michelle, they'll be rolled out across all restaurants at Disneyland and California Adventure. They started, but they will be fully out by spring of next year.
And I love that, because I have to say one of my biggest pet peeves in going to any type of amusement park is the food. And I always get there and I think, why didn't I think of this? I'm not vegan, but I tend to eat more on the healthy side. And I like my daughter to eat a certain way. But, when you just go to these parks, you just say, okay, it is what it is. And this is what there is here. And this is what we're going to eat today. But the fact that they have recognized that more and more people would like these options. And then the fact that such a big company is spearheading this movement so that maybe somebody who wouldn't normally order anything vegan decides to and tastes it and realizes, wow, it doesn't have to taste like what, just because it's not dairy or meat or anything like that. I think that's wonderful.
And these, when Disney does something, they don't, sort of tiptoe around it. I mean, they basically had, dozens of chefs participating in the creation of menus and the testing of menu items. They had dietitians and nutritionists on board to just to tick off all the boxes, make sure that you're getting that these dishes are delivering on the nutrients and the stuff that's good for you. So a very comprehensive approach. I think that the fact is that we as consumers, Michelle, are traveling for food much more. In a much more focused way. We just a couple of months ago did a global survey looking at the culinary travel trend, the decision-making that goes into travel destinations, and how much of that is based on food. About 50% of people we surveyed said that they actually will look at culinary experience options at their destination when they are making the decision as to where to go. So a destination that is not highlighting its chefs, that's not highlighting it's sort of innovative restaurants, or or sections of a city that are particularly well known for culinary adventure are missing the boat. I mean, they're ignoring a vastly and a quickly growing segment of the population who will literally follow their taste buds to their next destination.
Absolutely. I always say I eat my way through any destination. And that's a big part of traveling, is tasting the different variety of cuisine. And even when you go to a place like Disney World or Disneyland, you're traveling through different parts of the park. And like you were saying, each menu will reflect based on where you are in that park.
And food is really a window into culture. It's a window into history. It's a window into the people who live at these destinations. And let's be honest, these days that is why we are traveling. We're becoming much less sort of enthused by the idea of just sitting and doing nothing on a beach for. I mean, I could do that for a couple of days, be honest with you. But then we want to venture and meet. And really kind of intimately get to know these places. And food, I mean, if you were to travel to Chile, where I'm from, I would probably start to tell you a little bit about the empanadas and the cazuelas that my grandma used to make, and seeking some of these traditional dishes out, especially the way they're being made today, perhaps by a new generation of chefs, and how innovative some of these traditional dishes are being crafted now. That is a doorway, so a bit of a window into the culture, the sort of the personal histories of people there on the ground, while at the same time satisfying your taste buds, which are increasingly becoming more sophisticated. And it's an interesting phenomenon, and I think that the destinations marketing themselves are realizing this quickly. And I think you'll notice if you sit back, how are destinations? How are they promoting themselves now? Chefs, restaurants, food. The way that food is grown and prepared. That's gaining some major footing and major following as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we had more time, I would love to talk to you, because I know last year you covered the big food event at Epcot. And so I feel like Disney is always circled around food as well. And so you might think, oh, Disney, it's just for young kids. Not at all. It's culture, it's food, it's fun, it's everything wrapped up into one. And that's clearly why it's so popular. So I want to have you on for one more segment, because you just have so many great ideas. Tell me what we're going to chat about next. Give everyone a little preview.
Well, I think we should talk about some destinations we're keeping an eye on for 2020, and maybe touch on what's going on in the Bahamas. We're still really focused on helping that region rebound after some hits that they took over the hurricane season. But the outlook there is quite good, and I think people might be interested in that.
Absolutely, because there are some great cruises that go to the Bahamas, especially from the New York and Florida area, where I'm in the New York area, and plenty of people are going out of Florida. So we'd love to hear about that. We're speaking with Gabe Saglie. He is the senior editor of TRAVELZOO. If you have not signed up for their top 20 deals right to your inbox every week, you go to TRAVELZOO.com. It is free, and you will love getting that email every week. I'm telling you, it will inspire you to get away from your desk and travel, whether it is locally in your own backyard or far away. And don't forget, you can follow us on social at Passport Mommy. It's on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can also head to the website, passportmommy.com, and listen to this show and any other that you may have missed in past weeks. I'm Michelle Jerson. More coming up in a few.
Motherhood is a journey. Joining you on your greatest adventure, here's Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy.
We're speaking with Gabe Saglie. He's the senior editor of TRAVELZOO. It is the destination, the place to go to find exclusive offers from top travel and entertainment companies from across the world. You could sign up for free at TRAVELZOO.com to get your weekly email, which will list all the best deals of the week that you should jump on. Gabe, thank you so much for joining me. So you were telling me that the Bahamas now, with the storm, obviously people are keeping an eye out. What's the progress with that right now? How's it looking?
So the big push now is obviously, there's definitely a recovery that's still going on there in select portions of the Bahamas. This was, in fact, a Category 5 hurricane that decimated a sort of a particular northern stretch of the Bahamas. But the fact is that as that goes on, there's a simultaneous push to make sure that people understand that the vast majority of the Bahamas was actually unscathed by the hurricane season of 2019. And in fact, so many of those resorts and so many of so many portions of the Bahamas that depend in such a big way on the infusion of travel dollars out of the U.S. and out of Europe are in fact open for business. You mentioned cruises. I mean, I think they are the ones leading the way, sort of shedding the spotlight on the fact that some of the more popular ports of call are in fact still in the Bahamas, and those ships are stopping there and giving to cruisers that quintessential Caribbean experience, while still allowing a lot of the dollars they spend on the ground to go towards some of the recovery efforts not too far away. And I was just speaking to my friends at MSC Cruises. They've got a brand new island that they're premiering later in the month called the MSC Ocean Key Marine Reserve. I'm going to be popping over to check that out before the end of the year. A brand new island that is now going to be part of the MSC cruising lineup on their 7-nighters out of Miami on the MSC Meraviglia, which is a brand new ship being introduced to the States. So clearly that the activity there is ongoing. The access for folks is very much it is wide open, and but it's about letting folks know that this is a part of the world that needs travel dollars to continue to flourish, and that so much of it is still, in fact, ready and open to welcome travelers from all over the world.
Especially if you are in the Northeast region where I am, it's so easy to get to, even if you're not cruising there, just to fly there. So it's such a beautiful destination. So what else is happening? What is your forecast for 2020? What are some of the hot travel destinations?
Well, we're looking at people traveling even more in 2020. I think overall the trends are looking up for the travel industry, particularly the international travel industry. We're ending 2019 with a bit of a drop off in domestic travel, but an uptick in international travel. I think that'll flow into 2020 in the first, I'd say, half of 2020, driven in large part by the strong dollar. So you're looking at, for example, the exchange rates against the euro, against the sterling in the UK, which is taking a hit because of the Brexit uncertainty, against the Mexican peso, against a lot of these other foreign currencies. The dollar is strong to the point where it's as strong as it's been in 3-5+ years in some cases. And so that is incentivizing a lot of Americans who are looking at now, well, if I'm on, I mean, there have been times during this year where flying from the West Coast of the U.S. to, say, Europe cost you as much as taking a domestic flight to Denver or Houston. And so when you've got that kind of bang for your buck, Europe becomes very appealing. We're seeing some great airfare sales to Asia, and so the international travel is going to do well. And I think people are going to flex the muscle that the dollar brings and take advantage of that. I think Portugal is going to continue to be a hot spot in 2020. I think that if people are considering Portugal for the first time, 2020 is when you want to do it. I think looking beyond that, Portugal prices will likely go up and it'll just become a busier destination. But we're still on that sort of the leading edge of that surging appeal around Portugal. And I think the cruising industry, certainly in the Caribbean, but around Europe as well, will see an uptick as well, simply because of some pretty competitive pricing on the river cruise industry. New vessels there are really kind of keeping prices there attractive. And again, it'll draw sort of a newer, probably younger to some degree crowd to that particular portion of the industry.
And I would love to talk to you more about river cruises at another point, because they are very desirable. And so I've seen so many great previews and videos, and I keep saying, I need to go on a river cruise because it's so much different than your other types of cruise, which is also great, but for a different type of experience. Gabe Saglie, thank you so much for joining me today, the senior editor of TravelZoo. You have inspired me as always. And don't forget, you can head to TravelZoo.com to sign up for their weekly email so that you too can see the best deals that are being offered every single week. And don't forget that time between Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Also, they will be releasing some extra good deals. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have a great rest of the day.